I apologize for the last interruption. Got a phone call. So let's go over the causes of ice ages. First, plate tectonics. Plates near the equator don't get ice, not much. Plates near the poles or continental plates near the poles allow the accumulation of ice that then spreads out from there. So we have, during the time of the dinosaurs, plates down near the equator, not much ice. In the present day, you have Antarctica near the South Pole and Greenland near the North Pole, and lots of ice accumulated. So that's one of the big things. Slow process, but it matters over time. Atmospheric changes matter quite a bit because carbon dioxide, methane, and water vapor in the atmosphere all trap in heat, kind of like a thick blanket. And so if we change any of those things, then we get a change in the weather patterns. And the climate patterns is just the average of weather over time. So if the average is colder, ice tends to accumulate. And then the other factor on the scale of 40,000 to 100,000 years is Milankovitch cycles. Milankovitch cycles have to do with the way in which the Earth goes around the sun. It doesn't go in a circle. It goes in an ellipse, and that ellipse sometimes gets longer and sometimes more circular, and that affects how much sunlight gets into the Earth. Also, the Earth tilts, and so like in this figure shows tilted over more, we're going to get more extreme winters near the poles. Tilted over less extreme winters. Also, that axis wobbles, and so if it wobbles in such a way that it's leaning towards the sun during the wintertime, you're going to have milder winters. Leaning away from the sun during wintertime, it's going to be colder winters. So all those things combine into Milankovitch cycles, causing ice ages also. What are the effects? Well, what we see is this fluctuation back and forth over thousands of years in terms of the temperature, but in the last 10,000 years, we see this warming, a lot warmer, and we see this been fairly stable. Only recently has it started to shoot up even more, and that's because of human effects on the climate. So, the last 10,000 years has been the time in which humans have developed agriculture. All our agricultural societies have occurred in that time period. We've built infrastructure like ports and cities along coastlines. So we've made an assumption in our civilization of stability in terms of the climate. Now we're messing with that. This is a picture of a glacier as it progresses down the hill. How does a glacier move down the hill? Well, there was a really fascinating study done back in the 1800s where a guy went out and drove these poles across in a straight line across a glacier. Came back 4 years later, and the ones in the middle of the glacier had moved farther than the ones near the edge. The glacier was deforming inside. The ice was moving kind of like a fluid. Came back 4 years after that, and again, the middle part had moved even further down the hill. But at the same time, the end of the glacier had moved up the hill, or it appeared to. What happened is it had melted back from here to here to here. So not only had this amount of ice moved, but also the ice that had come moving down the hill, it also melted, right? So a glacier doesn't move uphill, it just melts back, right? But at the same time, the glacier is moving under gravity down the hill. So what evidence remains of glaciers? Well, we've talked about this a little bit. The big rock out in the middle of the forest, the glacial erratic. You see U-shaped valleys along the Pacific Northwest, around Washington and up into Canada. You can really see these valleys. We talked about moraines, which are the endpoints of glaciers forming along here. They're left behind. And all this glacial debris that's left behind by the glaciers that advanced over the area. And what's also left behind is some beautiful landscape. This is Yosemite Valley, and these are waterfalls. Spilling off from up here was tiny little glacier. The main glacier came down the big valley here and cut down deep and left these hanging valleys spilling off, forming these beautiful waterfalls. So Glaciers sculpt the land into beautiful formations, worth seeing sometime.